I Don't Know Yet is not affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. The content put forth are the thoughts, opinions, and experiences of the host and guests. It is meant to be suggestive only and is in no way a reflection on how to work the steps in any fellowship or how to work any other recovery program. Hi.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I'm really glad to have you back. Welcome.
I know. I love that I'm back.
Yes.
I'm happy.
Yes.
I'm watching your stuff and seeing you post and get some traction. And here we go.
It's only because you came on the show.
I know. I'll take all the credit.
Okay, so today Tyler and I are going to talk about year 2,
Yeah.
the second year,
Yeah. Where all the fun stuff happens.
where all the real stuff starts to happen.
Yep. No more pink cloud.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of shoot the shit, I guess, and go back and forth. But let's start kind of by getting your perspective, right? Like coming from a place of not being able to string more than a day or two together, if that, to trying to get to that monumental 1-year moment compared to the second year. Like, what was your experience with that?
Well, and so mine's actually a little bit different. So I actually had long stretches of sobriety prior to recovery.
Okay.
So I mean, it was completely random, and it was always like the floor was going to give out. Like I knew something bad was coming. So I was like constantly living with that little monster on my back, right? Like, when is it going to strike? When's it going to come out? And I mean, I think the longest I ever got together for sobriety, just sobriety, was over a year. Like, it was just over a year. But there was no recovery in that, right? So
It's
it was
really impressive that you did that with no
Just-
recovery.
pure self-will, right? And
Crazy.
and really just trying to appease everybody that wanted me to be better. Like, I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for the consequences, or to avoid the consequences. So, but then I would go stretches, it might be 3 months, might be 6 months, whatever it was. But it was this ticking time bomb, right? Because all it was sobriety. There was no recovery in there. I wasn't healing. I wasn't doing anything, to right my wrongs, to work on myself, to grow, to be free from character defects, to do any of the things that recovery has now taught me. I wasn't doing any of it. So it was literally just abstinent from drugs and alcohol. And I'll get sicker in that spot. So that was a crazy thing, is like, I remember at one point I had about a year or just over a year. And I actually got really sick. Like, my mental health was suffering. My physical health was just atrocious. I think I weighed like 305 pounds at one point. And I was just like, I was so unhappy because I wasn't doing anything. I was just abstinent. So I don't really count that. Right. So I have those stretches of time where I was sober, but that's not the same as year 2 of recovery. And I love the distinction between sobriety and recovery. So for me, when I got to my second year of actual recovery, it was like this real life started happening, right? Because the first year was, really intense in recovery. Everything was recovery related. Everyone I was hanging out with was recovery based. I was just building my life. I don't even want to call it rebuilding because it was building it, right, to what I have now. But there was a ton of stuff. I'm paying people back. I'm paying off debts. For me, I mean, my children and the custody thing was a huge, huge weight during the first year. But I was just like riding on that high of that initial newfound freedom, something that I didn't ever believe I could have attained. I did, and I was like, whoa, what is this? Like, they talk about being rocketed into the fourth dimension. Yeah. And that was cool, and it was wild, and it was like, even though life was happening, I was like, yeah, let's do this. But year 2 is the test, right? Like, that's where shit gets real. And it was like, it wasn't just sunshine and roses and recovery anymore. It was life and recovery and balance and relationships and work changes and all sorts of family dynamics and stuff. And it's like, well, how do I merge those things together? And there was a lot of learning to do in there, and a lot of sitting.
Yeah.
And waiting. And like, what do I do next? But that's the way it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be this wild ride for all of recovery. it was supposed to be like, okay, now the real work is really kicking up here, and I have to maintain this. Like, this isn't okay. I did a year of recovery, now I can just rest on that. No, like, this is where the determination and the perseverance and the discipline and all those principles started to be absolutely necessary, or I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, so for people that have listened to the previous episodes, right? Like, I didn't start my journey on my own. I was court mandated and kind of forced to do it. And so when I jumped into it, I just said, like, if I have to stay sober, I might as well try. I'd never really tried before. And so the idea of getting 30 days clean, like, that sounded impossible. But because I had to go to detox and I had to go to treatment, it was free sobriety, right? So I think I was like 60 days sober. And I'll never forget it. We talked about it a bit yesterday, but I was sitting in this room and I had heard this person speak before, but I never paid attention to him or who he was. And I just walked out of that meeting hating him for a really long time because, and this is like March of 2020. He had said, and he was like one of the last people to speak, and he's like, for all you people out there, it's as simple as this. Getting a year, easy. Try getting 2, 3, 4, 5. That's hard. Yep. Getting a year is easy. And so my terminally unique brain, being an addict, was like, how dare you? Right? That victim mentality. I'm like, do you have any idea how bad my addiction is? Do you have any idea how hard it is to be me? I'm only sober because I have to be, because I'm in treatment. You. Yeah. Like, I hated this guy.
The truth hurts.
And then I got out of treatment. I got a sponsor and I just started doing the work. Granted, I think that, God knew exactly what I needed when I needed it, because I got sober and then COVID hit. There wasn't a lot to do. So I just pedaled to the metal on recovery, and life got really good really fast. And I think that I hit step 12 when I was like 10 months. Like, I was almost a year.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd spent all this time, 4 through 9, clearing all this crap away, feeling amazing. My sponsor, and I have this page open for a reason. We'll talk about that later. My sponsor's like, be careful. This is what happens to most of us. And I was like, no, I got this. Year 1, I took my birthday. Everything was great. And then I got through year 2, and I look back now and I'm like, holy shit, year 1 was easy.
Yeah.
He was right.
Yeah. Son of a bitch. He was telling the truth the whole time.
Telling the truth.
Well, and it's such like, I say this all the time, especially when I'm going through the book, is like, it will predict your future based on the past, right? Like, if you change certain things, you will get certain promises. If you fail to, then you will continue to repeat these cycles, and these things will continue to come up. And if you don't grow and you don't evolve and you don't just follow the directions of what the book tells us to do, you're going to go back. You're going to go back into whatever it was. Like, that's that cycle that we got stuck in for so long. And it's like, it accurately predicts the future one way or the other. You get to decide which way that is. Like, are you going to do the work and it's predicting the promises that will come true? Or are you going to, no longer be able to differentiate the true from the false? And then you're going to be, back where you started. And it's like, but it happens so often because of that terminal uniqueness. It's like, oh, well, yeah, you say year 2 is the hardest, but you don't know me. And it's like, yeah, we know each other. We know exactly what it's not even hard to predict, because we're just like, yeah, I've seen it so many times. We're actually not that special. We're actually not that unique. We actually just fall into these patterns and we repeat these behaviors over and over again until we have a change. Once that change happens, it's like, then you can get all these other things that are in the book that are promised to us. But there's actually more work involved.
Oh, yeah.
To do that.
Well, and I remember when I work with my sponsees now, I try to be really present because I can remember what it was like going through the steps my first time, right? And so I try to be aware. I'm like, are they actually listening? Like, maybe I should be like, hey, why don't you take over and read?
Yeah. Take the lead here for a minute. Let's see.
Because when I started reading, when I started working, I was sick.
Yeah.
I hadn't re-surrendered in 6 after the first surrender in 3. I hadn't worked on my character building. I hadn't made amends and faced these things. I was still a very spiritually sick person. I was just reading the material.
Yep.
How many times was my sponsor reading something out loud? I wasn't listening. I was thinking about the cute guy that I saw in the last meeting I was in, or I was thinking about getting high,
Yep.
or stressed about something that I did that I felt guilty about. I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying attention. And if I was, I think I did a fairly decent job in my 5, in my 4-5, my first time, because I was desperate. I didn't want to fail this court mandated program. I sat on my 4 for months because I was afraid that if I didn't do it right, that it wouldn't work. And I put myself through a lot of extra pain I didn't need to by sitting on it. So I think I was pretty honest about it. But like, my experience showed me that doing my steps the first time was the bare minimum,
Yeah.
right? It's just skimming the surface.
Yeah.
You don't even know yourself the first time you do them.
Yeah. Well, I was actually working with a guy today. We're rocking into steps 8 and 9.
Yeah.
And I was telling him, I was like, buddy, like your recovery is really going to start when you start sponsoring. Because he was like, oh, maybe I should go back and read the book again just to make sure I've got everything up till this point. I'm like, you should absolutely go back and read the book. Why don't you do it with someone else? Why don't you find somebody that you can take through the book? Because that's really where it's like, how am I going to sit here and try and explain this to you if I don't understand it? I realize what I don't know when I'm trying to explain it to someone else. I'm like, oh shit, what are they talking about with that? How can I relate that to my life? Oh, I haven't experienced that yet, or I haven't done the work around that yet. I should probably do that. Otherwise, I'm sitting here being a hypocrite. And it's like, yes. And that propels me into more recovery and to more healing and to more growth and to the spiritual journey. It's like, yeah, that's the best way to reread the book is don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Like, don't.
Yeah, I remember my sponsor had told me, like, when I finished 12, she was like, okay, little birdie, fly free. Go find someone, read the book. And I had asked her, I'm like, but what if I don't, like, there's a lot of information in here. I'm like, what if I don't know how to explain something? She's like, just call me.
Yeah.
And so I went through the book with my very first sponsee. I'm reading all these things, and I think I must have called her like 7 times in my first hour appointment with somebody because I'm like, this is really old language.
Yeah. What even are they talking about
What
here?
does this mean?
Yeah. I don't get it.
Right? But you do that enough times. You do that with enough people. It's amazing all the stuff that you read over that you just didn't get.
Well, and then you get all these different ways to relate it to unique situations, right? Which I find is one of the most helpful things because, like, when I'm taking guys through and I'm breaking down what the book is talking about, the more I get to know them, the more I'm like, okay, so do you see how this applies to your obsession with, finances? Do you see how this applies to your, sex conduct? Whatever the case may be, I can relate it to them and me, and I can be like, okay, when I went through, this was my issue with this, or when I was in active addiction, this was my issue. These were the defects that kept popping up. Does that relate to you? And they're like, oh yeah, that totally relates to me. And I'm like, okay, good. So then we're on the same page, and I can find different ways to kind of make it make sense to them. Because even if it was written in plain language, in modern language, we don't want to see that at first. We are still so sick, right? In those early days of recovery, you're still just scratching the surface. Like, that's it. You haven't done any deep work yet. You're not going to retain this all. You need somebody to help you relate it to your own story. I needed somebody to help it relate it to my story. And then when my sponsor was like, hey, remember when we talked about this that you were struggling with in addiction? That's what the book is talking about. And I'm like, I missed that. Like, I'm a pretty intelligent guy, and I glossed right over it because I needed somebody to point it out and be like, hey, relate it back. So for me, like the first year, I went through a treatment center. I did all 12 steps in the treatment center before I graduated. I actually left the treatment center with a sponsee because that's what they told me to do. Didn't work out for,
Numerous
whatever
reasons, probably.
Yeah, there's some stuff going on there, but I was willing. I was like, yep, okay, you asked me, I'll do it. I'll just do whatever you guys tell me to do. Mm-hmm. Then I got my own sponsor on the outside. We started right at the beginning of the book, and he took me through the book in a way to teach me how to sponsor. That he was taken through the book, that it was passed down, from generation to generation. And like, if anything, if there's a simple way to kind of, recap years 1 and 2, is year 1 was just learning, right? It was all just learning. It was all
Yeah.
very new. It was all very, taking the time to relate it and go through it and, double back and going to my sponsor and asking questions and how do I, apply the principles to this situation? And it was just learning, learning, learning. Year 2 was like, okay, time to live it.
apply.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to work it now. Now there's no more like studying for this to potentially happen. It's happening. Life is happening around you. And something I always try and point out, especially when I'm working with people in like treatment centers and stuff like that, when I'm speaking at treatment centers, it's almost a must for me, is just explaining what my motivations have always been. Like I've always had these 3 key motivators where the first one, the one that ran my life for so long, was self, right? I was motivated by self. If it served me, if I wanted it, if it made me feel better, whatever that was, it was selfish, self-seeking. That was my motivation. Things got real bad, and my motivation was desperation. That's what took me into a treatment center. That's what made me so teachable. That's what made me so compliant when they were like, hey, you got a sponsor, you got to do this. I was like, yep. Got to go to meetings. Yep. I got to take a service position. Yep. Like just yes to everything because I was desperate.
Yeah.
But the problem is that, and especially over that first year, that desperation goes away. Like it has a shelf life. It has an expiry date as things get better.
If you're working the steps in the beginning, you bet.
Yes, because that's the whole point of this, is to get you out of that state of desperation. You're starting to get stuff back. You're starting to feel better about yourself. You're starting to grow and you're handling situations differently. Well, the desperation just kind of melts away if you're doing this stuff. The important reminder here is, what do I then do for my motivation? Do I go back to self? Because that's kind of the knee-jerk reaction is I would be comfortable going back to self. That's just what I've been always comfortable with. I need to go into willingness, right? Just that active willingness where it's like, I don't want this, but I'm willing to do it. I don't want to do these things, but I'm willing to do them anyways. Because by this point, I can't really hide from the fact that I know it's the right thing to do, even when I don't want it. So if I can kind of transition from self to desperation to willingness for my motivation, that's what's sustained a lot of my recovery, is just staying willing. Now, it's not to say I don't slip back into self. It's not to say that there hasn't been situations that come up that make me feel desperate, right? Recognizing that, acknowledging it, just constantly checking in and being like, what is my motivation here? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Is it because I feel like this is where I should be, not where I want to be? Is it because there's a lesson here that I need to learn when I look back? Like whatever that is, as long as I stay willing, things work out really well. Like it's the reason I'm sitting here today. Because if I'd gone back to self, I've done that before. Years and years before I ever got recovery, I did go through the 12 steps in the treatment center. And as soon as the desperation was gone, I went right back to self. I started buying nice new stuff for the house, got, just all this stuff. And it was just filling this void because I was selfish again, because I wasn't doing the things to remove the selfishness. I didn't carry on doing any of that stuff. I just wasn't willing to do it, because why would I be? I'm not willing. I'm not desperate anymore. Things are good now. I got the job. I got the girl. I got the house. I got the truck. I'm good. And meanwhile, I'm just rotting inside and I'm deteriorating, not even knowing that I'm deteriorating, because I'm like, things are good. No, things are dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going from that place of desperation to that place of feeling, doing 4 through 9, right?
Yep.
Starting to feel better. And I remember, I haven't used this in a while. The way that I used to explain it to newer people was like, imagine you finally decide you want to get in shape and be healthier, right? You cut out McDonald's, you start eating well, and you go to the gym all the time. After 6 months, there's going to be a very large difference in you for the better. I'm like, I feel like addicts and alcoholics, we do 4 through 9. We're like, oh, I feel so much better. And then we stop going to the gym and pick up all the McDonald's again.
Yeah.
And expect to keep spiritually fit.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what happened to me. Like, I know there's there isn't a lot of literature around 7. I had no idea how to work 7, right? So I did 4 through 9. I felt great, and I was like, okay, cool. And I was taught 10 and 11, didn't actually even try to apply them for probably until year 3.
Yeah.
Another reason why year 2 can be so much harder is because all the things that got us healthy, we stopped doing the things that got us there.
Yeah.
It's not like I didn't do it on purpose, that I did it on purpose. I used to go to meetings and I used to watch people in towards year 2 and year 3 talking about the importance of 10. Right? Obviously all the steps are important, but being like, oh my gosh, like my 10 sucked. And if I could just say one thing, like, don't let this happen to you. Get good at 10s as soon as you can. And I watched these people and I was like, I don't want that to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay attention to this and I'm going to work. Like I had every intention on working the shit at a step 10.
Yep.
But with lack of awareness as to how deep rooted some of my defects were, it wasn't until I acted in them for several months at a time and felt the pain of what they brought to get that awareness. And I feel like just the experience that I have in different rooms, it's those types of experiences. And really, are you going to continue to apply, or are you gonna give up, right? Like I can't tell you how many times I stopped. Like I saw my sponsor almost every week my first year.
Yeah.
And then I got through the steps and she's like, here you go, fly little birdie. Go teach this to other people.
It's your turn now.
And I just I tried to be everything. Right? Those were also my defects, but I'm like, I never reached out when I had a problem. Yeah. My brain was like, I've been taught how to do this. I should be able to apply this stuff.
Those shoulds. They're
right?
such killers. Yeah.
I can do this on my own. I've been taught the tools.
Yeah. I shouldn't have to call. I should know how to handle this situation perfectly. Like, fuck, who told you that? Where did you get this idea from? Yeah.
It's because we're bananas on the inside.
We convince ourselves of this irrational thinking and we're like, yeah, no, I shouldn't call for that. And it's like, you should call for everything. Everything until you actually realize what's important and what's not. But you're not going to do that on your own. Somebody will help you and they will be glad to help you do that. Like I remember for the first year when I realized the importance of step 10s, like step 10 calls, the way they're written in the book, and I started doing them more frequently. I remember I would call my sponsor. And, obviously there'd be some sort of issue going on and it was probably catastrophized by me before I called them and really wasn't that big of a deal. But that's the whole point, is it motivates me to call them. So I pick up the phone, I call him and I'm like, hey, this is this. And I kind of start explaining myself and I go on this tangent. And then he's like, okay, well, what did God say? I'm like, shit, I'll call you back, because I wasn't praying first. And I was like, that's what I needed, because I wasn't pausing. I wasn't, praying. And then I was just trying, like, not even knowing, like you said, not even really intentionally doing it. Self would take over, right? When self takes over, that's when I get desperate. That's when things become catastrophe. And then I'm left being like, well, now I'm desperate. Like, okay, so what do we do here? And yeah, you call and you have somebody else put it in perspective and remind you what the first part of a step 10 is, which is to pray. And I was like, shit, I'm really not praying enough. Oh, okay, maybe I'll start with that and kind of see where it goes from there. And it's like, then all of a sudden these catastrophes just became less and less and less. And then the more I made those calls, the more I knew how to deal with these situations, applying the principles. And then I became more aware of where the fear and the dishonesty and the selfishness and the resentment were before they hit, right? Like when they were coming. And I think we talked about this, last time too, where it was like in early recovery, it involved amends. A lot of my step 10s involve, even if it was just a reaching out and admitting that I had done something and, asking somebody what I had to do to fix it. And there wasn't a whole lot to it. They weren't like major events, but I didn't catch it until it was too late, until I'd acted on those things. And then I learned. And every time I had to go make an amends in year 1, I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to be doing this in recovery. What can I do better? And then I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm doing a little bit better next time. And, maybe I catch it a little bit earlier than an amends next time. And it's like, yeah, that's the whole point of this. Just practice. Keep going to the gym. Keep exercising. Keep getting stronger. Don't stop when you get strong, because you will lose it. And then the next thing you know,
continue to get stronger.
Yes, you got to keep lifting the weight to get strong. And the crazy thing too is, I tell everybody this: be careful what you pray for, because when you pray for strength, God's going to give you weight. It's not going to give you strength. You know, you're going to be given the things you need to be stronger. You got to pick it up and lift it and carry it and do all the things that will make you stronger. So I remember, like, in very, very early recovery, I was just spinning out over something, and I went to somebody and I was like, "What is going on? You know, I feel like I can't handle this, and I'm praying for strength and I'm not getting it." And they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on. How are you praying? Like, what are you asking for?" And I was like, strength to get through this situation. They're like, "Well, yeah, you're being given something that you have to work through that's going to make you stronger." And I was like, "Oh shit, I should probably be careful in doing that." They're like, "Yeah, you should be very careful because you're getting exactly what you prayed for. You just aren't getting it the way you want it." I'm like, shit. And like, okay, same analogy. I go to a gym and I want to get stronger, and I hire a personal trainer, and I ask that personal trainer, "Hey, make me stronger." They're not going to give me muscle. They're going to give me weight. They're going to give me exercises. They're going to give me routines. They're going to give me practices that I have to do. And if I just do that
Repetitively.
yes, over and over, and have discipline where I keep repeating it, even when I don't want to, and I don't want to get up at 6 a.m. and go to the gym. Lo and behold, 6 months, a year later of doing it consistently, and I'm like, man, I'm in great shape. Don't stop. Don't forget the medicine that you took to get there. Keep taking the medicine. It works. But I will lose it. Just like I'll lose muscle, just like I'll lose strength, just like I'll lose all those things if I stop doing them. It's the work that sustains it. It's not me just wanting to be healthy, you know,
Yeah.
or wanting to be stronger or wanting to be whatever it is, right? I got to keep doing shit. Otherwise, I will lose it. And that's what year 2 is like really the test for, is like, do you want this? Like, are you willing to do this? Because you're fully back in the swing of life now. I was, right? Like for me, I was. And in my experience, most people are back in the full swing of life where shit's coming up, you know, and then there's tragedy, you know, there's heartache, there's loss, there's all of these things. And it's like, shit, you better be prepared for that because it's coming. You can't hide from it, you know?
It's life.
It is, and it's going to happen, whether you're ready or not. So why not be ready? Why not be strong enough? Why not be healthy enough to handle those things? Well, you'll find out if you're not, you know? And I just pray that you have a system in place that helps carry you through, because I had some massive issues in year 2. And not to mention, like, God's got a real good sense of humor. Because a lot of the things that kept me sick that I wanted to be so free from, God's like, yeah, it's not time yet. You got to learn, my boy, how to live through these things. You know, like I remember probably close to the end of year 1, maybe around year 2, I was sitting at home and I was lonely. You know, I was alone, but I felt lonely. Like it actually overtook me. And I think I had gone through a breakup just a little while before that. I'm not sure. But I remember sitting at home and I was like watching TV or something, and I was like, I want company, you know? And of course, nobody's answering text messages. Nobody's answering their phone. I just wanted to go and be with people. And I had felt this like this real need to not be alone. I was climbing up the walls in my place and I was just like, holy shit, how do I get out of this? And it's like, you don't. You get through it. Sit down, learn to be alone, learn that you don't need that. You'll be okay without that. And if you're okay without that, then you'll be so much better with it. Then when I am, you know, around people and I'm with people I love and I'm, you know, surrounded by friends and fellowship and acquaintances, whatever it is, I'm like, I'm more present. I appreciate this more. I wouldn't have done that on my own. I would have, the first person I called would have picked up their phone. That was my intention. I would have gone out and hung out with them, got that immediate relief and ease and comfort from satisfying
That
that.
void being filled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God's like, no, I'm not letting you. You got to sit here. And I mean, it was the same thing with like financial stuff and material stuff. You know, as hard as I was working to you know, pay off amends and pay people back and get myself out of the situation I was in, I couldn't do it as fast as I wanted to. And I wasn't supposed to. I wasn't supposed to come out of, you know, treatment and get a fancy ass car. No. That's what made me sick. It was the pursuit of those things, right? The worship of material items was what continued to make me sick. Even when I was sober, it made me sick because that's what I felt was important and that's what I felt was necessary in my life. And God's like, you're not allowed to have those things yet. I can't trust you with those things. You're not responsible enough with those things. And I was like, well, shit. please? Like, can I? Can I maybe just the car then? How about that? And it's like, no, not the car. How about the house? No, not the house. The girl? No. Okay, fine. I'll be okay without it. And then once I was, and it really was kind of, you know, that I think it was actually year 3 when the tide started to turn, and I started to get some of that financial security that I had wanted so bad.
Because you spent all of year 2 proving that you were ready for it.
Yeah. And I was okay without it.
Yeah.
And then I could be trusted to have it.
Yeah.
Because as long as I wasn't okay with it, I have no business having it. Yeah. Or as long as I wasn't okay without it, then I had no business with it. Right. I wasn't responsible. I had abused those privileges time and time again, and it was like, that was the lesson. That was what I had to live through. It wasn't enough to read it, to talk about it with somebody. I could understand it, and that was great. And I needed to understand it in order to live through it, but I needed to live through it in order to heal from it. And that, I think, was what that second year really brought for me. And I remember there was one point, I was in a tough financial spot. And I was like, why is this happening? Like, I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm working hard, and I'm trying to get ahead, and I just can't get my head above water. And then a really good friend of ours, actually, he was speaking at an event, and he started telling my story. He started saying the exact same thing that I was going through, and he started explaining it, and how in year 2 for him, you know, he's got a family, and you know, bills were getting cut, our bills weren't getting paid, and utilities are getting cut off. And he's like, oh man, I don't know if we're going to be able to, you know, pay the mortgage next month and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's me. You're talking about, that's where I am right now. And he's like, and I didn't flinch. He's like, I just persevered. I just trusted the path. I just kept going. No matter what life threw at me, no matter what the experience was, I just kept going. He's like, and I didn't think it was ever going to end, and I didn't know if there was a point in keeping trying, and all these things that were going through my head in that exact moment, I'm hearing him talk about in retrospect in his life. And then he's like, and then all of a sudden, he's like, the tides changed. He's like, and since then, I mean, he's a good friend of mine now. I've seen it that, yeah, all of those things, all of those worries that he had, all those fears and insecurities and everything that he had, he doesn't have today because he showed himself that he could live through it. And God showed him that he could live through it. Mm-hmm. And he proved it to himself. And he said, okay, I'm going to carry on. And now he's got a beautiful life. He has no financial insecurities. He's doing really well for himself. And that was the words of encouragement that I needed, that like, hey, stop second guessing this. Stop doubting this. It will work. You are doing the right things. Don't take your foot off the gas. These are the things that you need to do. But unfortunately, Tyler, you need to do them for a little bit longer. You need to sustain this for a bit more. And then I get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And it was almost like clockwork. It was crazy how at almost the exact same time in his story, you know, I think it was, you know, year 3 that it changed for me. And I was just like, holy shit, this is what I've been waiting for. But I felt responsible enough to handle it. I was like, holy, okay. So now in retrospect, I look back at, you know, my year 1 and 2, and I'm like, as tough as some of that stuff was, I wouldn't be here without it. Like, what a gift. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful that I got to go through that stuff, because I wouldn't have developed the character on my own.
Oh yeah, no way.
No, I wouldn't. I've proven to myself that I won't do it on my own, and God will do for me what I can't do for myself, even when I don't want it. Even when I'm not thinking I'm ready for it, or I'm doubting it, or I'm second guessing it, it's like, no, that's what's going to happen. And I am strong enough, you know, and sometimes God just needs to show me that I'm strong enough, but I got to sit in that, and I got to work through it. And there's no easy way out, and there's no shortcuts. And I don't get to decide when the payoff comes. I just got to trust that there will be a payoff and get to work. And if I continue to work, lo and behold, I'm okay. You know, all the times that I didn't think I was going to be okay in year 2, every time I was like, holy shit, I'm not going to make it. Oh my God, this is too real. This is too heavy. I'm breaking down. I can't do this. I can't do it on my own. I can't do it at all. Like, whatever those irrational thoughts that just kept piling up were, here I am. Obviously, I was able to. I could do those things. And it's like, wow, okay. And then that develops this deep-rooted trust and this faith in all things that I've learned and I practice, where now similar situations come up and they're not even a speed bump.
They don't even phase you anymore.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. But I know I can get through this because I'm not alone in this. I got a higher power that I will never understand, that I don't need to understand. I just have to trust, working for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I'll show up. I'll put in the work. You do the results, because I've proven time and time again, I'm not the guy to plan the results. If
Yeah.
I do, I'm setting myself up for failure. So year 2 was just like, okay, cool. You know it. Live it.
Let's see
Show me.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
put it to work. Don't give up. And I see so many people, when shit gets real, usually in year 2, it's really make it or break it, right?
Yeah.
And the ones, in all of my experience, the ones that make it are just the ones that continue to do the work. That's it. They don't flinch. They don't pull away when stuff gets hard. They just gear down and they get into it and they keep doing it and they keep doing what got them to that point.
Yeah.
And then they come out on the other side so much stronger for having done it. I'm like, okay, cool. That's the only difference, is the work.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting to be able to hear your kind of experience with it, because in the beginning of year 2 for me, I was the opposite, right? I was incapable of reaching out.
Oh,
Incapable, right? Like, you forgot to pray first, then you reached out. I prayed like a motherfucker constantly, but I didn't ever reach out
yeah.
because of all of my defects and stuff. And having, especially with my getting sober during COVID, there was literally nothing else. And so I got, like, everything was great, but I just got a job. Right. So trying to go through all of the trials and tribulations that come with having a job and having responsibility and having to be a good employee and all of these things. Right. And trying to learn to apply that in year 2. But I was also told from a very early beginning, get involved in service. Get a sponsor. Do the steps. Sponsor other people and get involved in service. And so I don't know if it was God or my defects, or God working with my defects, or maybe it was just God, or maybe it was just my defects. But during COVID, I attended a group. When it was really bad and first started, almost every group closed.
Yeah.
And I attended a group that upped their meeting count to 8 meetings a day. There was 42 meetings a week. Before I was working, I was going to 4 meetings a day.
Yep.
It was great. It was great. And so we had an unfortunate circumstance where our group chair, and if any listeners don't know what that is, each group or meeting will have somebody that kind of facilitates the back end stuff, right? So we lost our group chair. There was some unfortunate circumstances that happened, and he had to be removed from that position immediately. So we held this emergency business meeting. I was the coffee girl. It was I think I was 10 months sober at the time. And I was just happy going and
Just happy to be here.
Getting coffee and whipped cream I got the special cream for us half the time. And I was just there. And all of a sudden, they're like, any volunteers for this group chair position? I didn't know anything about it. Nobody put up their hand. And this is a large group. I sat there and I believe I prayed, because I literally went if nothing happens in 10 seconds, that's you telling me that I should put my hand up. I don't know if that was right or wrong, but I waited the 10 seconds and I'm like, I've just been reelected the supplies chair, but if you need someone and I could do 2 positions, I'll do that one too. And I was elected the group chair of this room that had 42 meetings a week.
Oof.
I'm pretty sure that was self. I'm pretty sure that wasn't God's will for me.
Yeah.
But what a ride.
Yeah.
What a learning lesson. Having that really taught me about my defects in year 2. Mm-hmm. Really taught me about how much I struggled asking for help.
Ooh. That's a tough one.
Because here I was, this 10-month sober girl, jumping out. And so the first thing that I noticed about this group is that the group chair was responsible, not at the business meeting, but was responsible to find chair people for these 42 meetings a week.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. We're going to fix that right now.
Yeah.
So I created a WhatsApp chat. And I said, if you can't make your meeting, post it here. If no one agrees to take it, it's your responsibility to show up.
Yeah. Cover your shift.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that, there was a few changes that I made and things were going well and it was great. But the responsibility and all of these extra things. And so I really learned in year 2 that the hardest thing for me to do is to be able to say when I'm down. Right. And I think 6 months in, I was dying. I was dying, but I still didn't want to ask for help. Right. At this point, I was willing to talk to my sponsor about it. And I'm like, I'm miserable. I feel deadly. I'm having a hard time at work. I'm having a hard time at the group. I'm sponsoring all these people. I have absolutely no time because I knew zero about emotional sobriety or any kind of balance between year 1 and year 2. I'm 4 years now and I know this much about balance.
Yeah.
Still learning, but it was just fascinating to see. I remember, I think month 9, we had a business meeting and I actually decided to get humble and be honest. And I didn't realize how dishonest I was being for a lot of that second year. I wrote this whole thing to the group, and as I read, just thinking about it makes me want to cry. Finally admitting that I couldn't do it by myself was like one of the hardest things to admit. And it's so crazy to me that I love asking for help today.
Yeah.
But remembering how I felt then is making me cry now.
Yeah.
It's just such a weird paradox.
Well, because you look back at yourself and you're like, fuck, I wish you knew how easy this was. I wish you knew how healthy this was. I wish you knew how many people were dying to help you.
Oh, dying to help me. The 12 people immediately, like, I read this thing, I cried, and I'm like, I'm on the edge. I can't do this anymore. I need help.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, why didn't you say something? I'll take care of this. I'll do this. I'll do this. And like the immediate weight that was lifted in that moment, like, I love talking about bites of humble pie. I just love calling it that. And like, that was a big monumental one for me. But it was just, it's just crazy to look back on my year and see how fucking stubborn I was.
Yeah.
Right? How stubborn I was and how little I asked for help, and like the expectations I set on myself for success in sobriety and in recovery was so much higher.
And nobody else had those expectations.
Nobody else had them.
No, not even close.
Oh my God.
And it's crazy because when you explain this too, I'm just kind of thinking about it like, the step 10, because it's like, okay, you have this underlying fear of not being good enough, or, they trusted me. I have to be able to do this job. And, I should be able to, those shoulds come back up again. And it's all just fear, right? Because it's not actually rational. It's not actually happening. It's not a thing. It's a self-imposed idea.
Yep.
So you have this underlying fear. Then you're like, what do I need to do to fix this, to persevere? Then you become selfish, right? Because all you can see is, how do I fix this problem? I need to, me, I. And then you become dishonest with yourself, which is probably the more dangerous dishonesty I found, where you're like, you're lying to yourself. You're just straight up lying to yourself.
Oh, yeah. I was asking God for help every day and then doing it on my own.
Yeah. Well, and I picked up on this earlier, and I want to double back to it in a second. But that's it. And then, if left unchecked, with that fear and the selfishness and the dishonesty, you're going to start to build that resentment.
Oh, yeah.
Towards the group, towards the program, towards the fellowship. Good thing you caught it when you did. You didn't get to that resentment, because we probably wouldn't be sitting here if you had developed a resentment to the program. And as soon as you pull yourself out of it, as soon as you face that fear and you just summon the courage to write that letter and to express that you need help, boom, it's all gone. Gone.
Months of feeling like absolute shit, feeling like a failure, feeling fearful, gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah. Well, and what I wanted to double back to there was, us talking about kind of the opposite effects of step 10 in that year 2 and early year 2 especially, where I'm not praying and I'm reaching out, relying on other people, and you're not reaching out, you're just praying and relying on God. And it's like, first of all, if I'm not praying, how do I know where to go? I'm not asking for guidance in this situation. I'm not doing any of the things that I should be doing. So really, it's a selfish thing that I'm now trying to find the person to give me the answer. Whereas you are going to God and you're like, hey, God, can you give me direction on this? And God's like, yeah, for sure. If you just pick up the phone and call somebody, they'll give you the answer from me. And you're like, waiting for the answer. God, where is it? And God's like, just call somebody. Like, why aren't you calling somebody? They'll give you the answer. I'm giving it to them. They'll give it to you. I promise. And you're like, oh, where's that answer? Yeah. And it's like we're both doing the opposite thing.
Yeah.
Best of intentions. Again.
Oh, yeah.
Best of intentions. I just wasn't catching it until I had to be retrained to be like, hey, ask for the guidance. Because then if I put my trust into my higher power and the first person doesn't answer the phone, I know they weren't the person with the answer. Call somebody else. Call somebody else. Call somebody else. Keep working through, my list of people that I should have surrounded myself with by now, to rely on. Because, again, they love being asked for help. Me not asking for help is denying them the opportunity to help me.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's so important for their recovery, too. Why would I take that from them? And then suffer on my own.
Oh, yeah. You know what's funny? I'm going to out myself because if it's in my mind, it should be said. Because I said a prayer prior to starting this saying if it comes to my mind, it should be said. I don't like admitting this because I am over 4 years now, but I think it's really important that people understand that it doesn't matter how much time you have, you're still human.
Yeah.
And that you're going to fuck up and you're going to make some mistakes. So I will share. It was I think it was last weekend. I called you. 4:10, you were unavailable. You called me the next day, I was unavailable. We never actually had a chance to touch base.
Okay.
So something happened. I'm not going to share what it was because that's unimportant. I can't believe I did this and didn't realize I did this until just now.
I love that you're having this moment right now.
So this event occurred and I was immediately annoyed. I've done enough work through year 2 and 3 and on to understand that I need God and I need my pillars and I need to reach out. So this thing happened. I was super annoyed. I called you. You didn't answer. So I called my like next step person that I knew.
Yeah.
Did not answer.
Yeah.
I sat and I thought about it for a minute because I guess it was a little selfish, maybe a lot selfish, because I'm like, how long do I want this conversation to be? I don't want to call someone that I think's going to give me really great advice if it means an hour on the phone of giving backstory to get to the root of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I'm like, that's why I called you. I'm like, you know everything about this situation. So stupid. I called someone that I knew would not find the root.
Oh.
To let me get away with not finding out what I needed to work on. And I didn't realize that until just now.
Interesting.
Right? I have some more work to do. But I just think it's fascinating that I was just like, I went from, I love that I've put enough work in that I'm immediately like, see it, recognize it, do something about it. But it's fascinating how fast I took the out and justified why I didn't have to deal with it anymore. I also could have called you back after you called me back the following day, and I didn't because I'm like, well, I mean, I did talk to somebody. It's fine. It's fine.
And it doesn't go away. It's just dealt with momentarily, and whether that, dealing with these situations gives us a week or a month or a year of reprieve from it, if we are not fully dealt with, if we haven't fully dealt with it, then it will come back and it'll deal with us, right? And in these ways, this is what the Step 7 is about, is like, hey, show me where I'm coming up short. Show me what my shortcomings are. Well, there you go. You just got a lesson in one in real time where you're like, oh, shit, I did it. Okay. You're at the place now where you're like, ah, shit, I did it. Hey, we got work to do. Like immediately. It's just, you flip it. You're not like, oh, I can't believe I did that. What a piece of shit. I should be doing better than that now in year 4, where I'm like, no. I
messed it up. Now it's time to work. That's it.
And after we're done this, we'll probably talk about it. And, maybe we'll get to the root. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But you're not afraid of it.
But my willingness to want to constantly grow is there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Oh.
I love that these things happen in real time still all the time.
Well, it's funny too because I did address what I thought it was within 72 hours of that.
Yeah.
And maybe it didn't come up because like that resentment is gone and it's no longer there. So maybe that was it, but I definitely should still talk about it with somebody who's 12-step to know.
Well, and even doing a step 10 on that step 10 is now like, because you recognize that there was a little bit of selfishness in there, right? You see the selfishness crop up in a step 10 call, which is kind of this like inception of step 10 calls, which is, but it happens and it will compound, right? Because then you take the easier, softer way one time. And then next time you're like, well, it seemingly worked out last time. Maybe I should call this person.
And
then you're
snowball.
picking and choosing. Yeah. And you think you're dealing with the shit and it's just in the background dealing with you. And then by the time it comes to light, now you're dealing with all of these things that have mounted up. And it's like, yeah, but if you just do it right the first time, you don't have to do that. But then at any point throughout that cycle, you catch it and you stop. And then you catch it and you address it to the best of your ability. And you'll be shown if you didn't do it right. It'll come back up like you asked for it.
Yeah.
You prayed for it. You asked for these things to be shown to you. And if you don't deal with them when they're shown to you, guess what? You're not going to get stopped. It's not going to stop showing you. You're going to continue to be shown these things. And you don't get to decide when and how and where and what it looks like. Nope. It'll just keep coming back up. And it's like, okay. I think last time too we were talking about how you would you would repeat these things over and over again until it got so fucking uncomfortable for you
that I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah, and it's like that is a great encapsulation of what year 2 looks like.
Yes,
for me that's what it was. I was just like anything that I couldn't catch right away, couldn't put my finger on. The discomfort would just over and over and over and over again. I'm like, why does this keep fucking coming up? Oh, because I didn't do anything. Oh, right. Remember, you're supposed to do stuff about this now? Fuck. Okay. And sometimes it was quick. Sometimes it was drawn out. But it was always in my control when I dealt with it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the crazy thing is we don't lose that self-will. We don't lose the power of choice. I just don't get to take control of the situation. I just choose what version of me shows up to the situation. Is it the one that's willing or is it the one that's wanting? Because it's like you want certain things, you want certain answers, but are you willing to hear the shit that you don't want to hear? Are you willing to get the feedback that you don't really want to get? Are you willing to sit and really dig into this shit? Because whenever I'm willing to do that, the problem generally goes away. Like it is actually removed. I actually get to grow out of it, and then I'm actually relieved, not temporarily, but more often than not, it's actually long-term relief, if not permanent. But I had to be willing, and rarely have I ever gone into situations where there's the removal of a defective character, and I've put in the right amount of work and I haven't been relieved, right? Like it generally works out that way. If I half-ass it, yeah, I get a little snippet of relief, and then I'm just like, it comes back around again, because I asked for that. That is what I want. And I do want to be free from these things. Like that's the thing is the motivation behind this. Even last weekend, your motivation was there. You definitely wanted to deal with this, but that sneaky little defect popped in.
Well, and that's just it, right? That's why I really hope that what people take from this episode is the importance of really leveling up and working in year 2, because at year 4, and as someone who likes to think that I do a pretty good job of working a solid program, I still make mistakes. I still live in these defects, and sometimes it takes me a while to figure it out. I remember I speak a lot. I'm generally decent at public speaking, so big meetings are fine. And, I've taken my birthday at the different fellowships I attend, and so I've had my fair share of speeches in my time. I still remember my speech from year 1 at our home group.
Oh.
What a cocky little shit I was.
I love that. That's how you remember it.
It was so eager. So my goal was to be like the poster child of recovery. Yeah. I used this example. I remember this because I heard it when I was in like this growth and development marketing company. It's so stupid. So I said, recovery is like a Coke machine. It's like a vending machine. Okay. It is exhausting at 90% and exhilarating at 100. You can put 90 cents into a $1 Coke machine, but you ain't getting shit back. But if you put that extra 10% in, you're going to get that Coke.
What a motivational speech.
And I remember just being like, if you do it almost all like, and it was true. I just had
Yeah.
no idea what I was talking about. I was brand
You
new
just
sober.
weren't doing it.
Right? Oh, yeah, I was
Yeah,
saying
you're
it.
putting in 90 cents and preaching about putting in $1.
Right? But at the time, I was putting in everything.
Yeah.
And that's why I went from being desperate and broken and fucking suicidal to feeling really good and wanting to scream it from the rooftops, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, like, don't give it 90%. Give it everything. That'll be the difference.
Yeah.
And there was a couple other things that I said. Like, that was the one big one that I remember.
I'm actually trying to think. I'm like, fuck, do I remember you taking your 1 year? And if was it that bad? I don't. I mean, that was a long time ago.
I just think it's fascinating because I can really see the difference from year 1 to year 2. So year 1, I'm like, here's what you need to do to have a great life in recovery. And year 2, I cried and said, I'm so fucking grateful to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have this.
Yeah.
It's
you're doing
the
it.
shift is so different.
Well, and I still like to this day, you know, like one of the reasons I love hearing you speak at meetings and share, you know, what's going on and what the solution has been for you is because of the vulnerability that you have now, where it's like you get up there and there's no more bullshit. There's no more fluff. There's no more. You're just raw and real, and you know, when it gets emotional, it gets emotional. That's just the way it is, and you'll put yourself right out there. You'll show people that it's okay to struggle, which is one of the that's one of my favorite things from people with time that I needed, you know, and I still need all the time. But it got me through some really tough times. Was hearing other people with what I consider recovery and what I aspire to have get up there and be like, I'm fucking struggling. I'm not suffering because I have a program, but I am struggling. And it's like, wow, there's so much power in that because it's genuine.
Yep.
Right? And you are doing it. You are struggling and you're admitting it and you're doing it openly. And then, I mean, how many times have you gotten up and you said, I'm struggling with this, and you've gotten raw? And then how many people after the meeting are like, what can we do? Can we help? Is there they give a shit.
Well,
They
and
wanna
what's
help.
fascinating is my learning that lesson
Yeah.
happened in year 2
Yeah.
because I refused to admit that I needed help because I thought it was my job to show everybody how good the program was, because it is.
Yeah.
And I remember when I crashed in year 2 and I was at work, I went to a nooner meeting and I burst into tears. And I'm like, I am struggling and I don't know what to do. And I cried. And this girl came up to me and she said, I'm so glad that you said that, because I was starting to think this program wasn't working for me because my life's not perfect.
Yeah.
And everybody comes in here and talks about how great life gets.
Yeah.
She's like, you being honest about where you're at makes me think I have a chance. And I was like, holy, I'm depriving myself and other people of being honest about where I'm at.
Yeah.
What a beautiful experience. And because of that, now I can walk into our home group and walk up and not even get my name out before I start crying
Yeah.
some days.
Yeah. I've seen you get up there and like choke out your name in front of 100 people. And fuck, there's power in that. Like, that's one of the most beautiful. Like, you always have good things to share. You know, I love, you know, your take on this and your experience and your knowledge and all this stuff, which is, you know, I think why we have the friendship that we have. But when you get up there and I can see, you know, your fucking lip quivering a little bit, and I'm like, here we go. Buckle up. This is going to be a fucking good one, because I know how genuine it is. Like, there's nothing else but just pure, honest, openness there. And it just shows people like, fuck, you're real. This is real. This happens. Life happens, you know. And that is such a feat of strength. You know, and I struggled with that prior to recovery too. Is like, if I had emotion, if I was sad or if I was upset, or like, that's weakness. And it's like, fuck no, go cry in front of 100 fucking people. And you want to feel strength? Go cry in front of 100 people. You know, because they're not going to laugh at you. They're not going to judge you. And if they judge you, fucking who cares? Whatever. You know, it's probably because they're not in a very good place themselves and they're sick. And, you know, what does that matter?
And that's going to be drowned out by the people that care anyway.
They will just wash that away with
Yeah.
their love and their support. And, you know, and then people coming up. Like, I've gotten emotional sharing at big meetings and stuff too. Well, fuck, my birthdays. Like, every time I have a birthday, I'm just up there like, you know, and the amount of men that have come up to me afterwards and been like, thank you. I needed that. Like, and they start tearing up and they start to get emotional. And I'm like, brother, it's good. Let it out. Like, you need to let that, just because you don't let out your emotions doesn't mean they go away. They just get stuffed down inside. No wonder you're a fucking mess and you have to go get drunk and high. Like, yeah, because you got to let this stuff out every once in a while. And it's not enough to tell anyone this. Get up there and fucking show them. Lead by example, you know?
Yeah.
Because it makes me feel better when I get up there and I just, you know, let stuff out in the most genuine way possible. And if that involves having a breakdown and crying while I'm up there, then fucking I'm going to cry because that's what I needed. And to know that that might help other people, because it sure as hell helps me. But then I can help you with that. Like, what a fucking gift.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we need each other in this, is to show each other that, like, and then always to have that message of hope in there, right? It's like, yes, I'm struggling, but I'm not suffering. I'm not going to give up. I do have a way out, and I'm okay being not okay today.
Yeah.
Because I will be.
I love being able to stand up in front of a bunch of people in tears and say, my life is not good right now. Things are hard, but I still have never once thought about picking up.
There's power, so much fucking power in that.
Right?
And I, like, recently I've been going through something that's really, really difficult for me to navigate. And it's pretty much a first in recovery that I've actually had to experience this. I've done a lot of work preparing for it. And now it's time for it to happen. And I thought about that probably because I hear you say it so much. Like yesterday while I was driving. Actually, no, it was yesterday. I was driving home after our event last night. And I was like, you know what's fucking amazing? I just haven't thought that this is a time to drink, to use. Like, I'm passing 40 liquor stores on the way home.
Not even thinking about it.
Don't care. I probably read the signs that they got Budweiser on special and all this stuff, and it just doesn't even register. And that's not because I don't want it to. It's because it just doesn't, because of the results of the work. And it's like, what a fucking gift that I can go through this and I can navigate it, and I can not maybe be okay in that moment, but I don't need to pick up a drink. I don't need to do drugs. I don't need any of that, and I don't fucking want it either. That's the cooler part. Is it's not like, oh, I want it, but I can't because it's going to get me in trouble. It's like, no.
It's not a solution anymore. It's not even, ugh.
No.
Ugh.
And I mean, obviously, like, you know, we'd be crazy to say that we don't ever think about drinking and using. I mean,
It's crazy to think you're immune. You're not. We have to do this every day to make sure that we still feel that way about drugs and alcohol.
But the shift in how we think about it, right? Because it's not that thing that's plaguing me anymore. Like, hey, you should probably go have a drink. Hey, this really sucks. A drink would make this better. It's like, hey, fuck, last night, this is a time in addiction when I would have definitely been going to get drunk. 100%. And it's the realization that that's what I think about today, is that that's how I used to act, and it's not even on my radar today. That's the only way I think about it. I don't think about going and doing it anymore. I just think about the fact that that was a time when I would do it, and I'm not. And it's not even a thing. And like the gratitude that washes over. Yeah, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so fucking thankful for this program, you know, for the people that have shown me how to do this, because I would not have done this on my own. I'd be fucking drunk last night if it wasn't for the people around me, and for the people that came before me, and for the people that have guided me and taught me and shared with me and cried with me, and all these things led up to that, you know? Last night, I was good driving home with no drinks, it's nothing. The problem had been removed, and it's so cool to look back and think about it as in, like, what a fucking gift that that's not where I'm at today. Wow.
Right?
You know?
I never used to be able to go a single day.
Yeah.
And now on my hardest days, it's not even a thing.
Yeah.
What a gift.
The freedom that comes from that. You're not a slave to it anymore. You know, it doesn't control you. And it's okay to think about it. And then get back to fucking work, you know, to make sure it doesn't happen.
And I'm not going to sit here and, you know, try to say that, like, I've never thought about it because I worked the program, because I feel like that's also a little misleading.
Yeah.
I would say that I'm in my second year, more than my third, for sure, talking about our second year.
Yeah.
When things get real hard and real bad, my brain has, on occasion, said, you know what would make this all go away?
Yeah.
Getting high.
Yeah.
But because I work the program I work, that thought is instantly supplanted with, well, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
That's not a solution. I should probably pray and get on the phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Get to a meeting,
the
like, whatever.
thought has come to me several times over 4 years.
Yeah.
But as soon as I think it, I'm like, oh, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone.
What an absolute change in the way we think and the way we act and the way, like, it starts with the thinking, right? Because that's really, this is a thinking disease more than anything else. Yes, it's spiritual in nature, but it gets us through our thinking, right? So if we're spiritually unfit, our thinking's going to go down the drain. And if you're spiritually unfit and you get one of those thoughts out of nowhere, like, oh, hey, Jen, you know, it would make you feel a lot better. You know, it would make this just go away just for tonight. If you're not spiritually fit, you're going to sit on that thought. You'll be like, well, is that actually something I could do? Hold on. Can we play this tape forward? But at that point, if you're not spiritually fit, playing the tape forward doesn't lead you to consequences. It leads you to rationalizing and justifying. And you're like, maybe I could get away with this.
And I feel like that happens to a lot of people in year 2.
Yeah. I think that's why we lose so many people in year 2.
So many people.
Yeah. And so I was once the guy that made it past a year after being introduced to the steps. Obviously, I didn't do it properly. I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't do any of the shit I should have done. And it was in that second year, you know, even just in sobriety, not even with any recovery, where I convinced myself that it would be okay. You know, I convinced other people. That was a crazier fucking thing because, like, I don't know. They knew it was a bad idea, but I was just such a good manipulator because I believed it. That's why I could wholeheartedly endorse it, is because I believed it. And I was like, this is okay. You've made it this long. You've proven to yourself and to everyone else that this isn't a problem. Maybe try and see. And then it went well. And I was like, oh fuck, I've nailed it. I've mastered this recovery stuff. You guys are idiots. Go to your meetings. And
I've got this.
Holy, what a terrible place to be is when I've got this. Oh, I'm in trouble. I'm in so much trouble. I need to surround myself with as much recovery as possible. But I had to live that, fuck it up, completely crash and burn, do it all, you know, in my second year. And then today I'm like, no, I can be honest with myself. I don't got this, but I don't need to have it. That's the best part about it. I don't need to have all the answers. I don't have to have the solution. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be on the ball all the time. I just have to keep working. That's it. And as long as I do that and I keep connected, you know, to the people that will call me on my shit when I don't see it. That's the cool part. Cool. I can think about it. It will come to mind and I'll be like, that's a fucking idiot idea. What are you doing? Like, when has that ever worked for you, dummy? Call someone.
Yeah.
And I do. And I just do it, you know. But if I don't, if I get spiritually unfit and I get to the point where I'm questioning whether or not I can maybe, you know, have a couple drinks and keep it under control, I probably could keep it under control for a very, very brief amount of time, which is just going to reaffirm that insanity that I can control this. And then I'm going to take my guard completely down. And then I'm fucked. I don't have a mental defense against this disease.
That's what God's for.
Yeah. If I'm spiritually fit, that's this impenetrable wall where those idiot ideas can't get through. Because I'm like, what? That's insane. And you hear, like, play the tape forward, you know, as a common expression. If I'm not spiritually fit, that tape doesn't go forward. And what I play forward doesn't look the same as what reality is. I'll make up this insane world where I'm able to achieve this. And this time it'll be different. Maybe I can only have a few. And, you know, I'll do it without this. And I'll put all these restrictions in place. That's not what playing the tape forward looks like for me when I'm spiritually unfit. If I'm spiritually fit, I don't really even have to play the tape forward. I'm just like, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Stop it. And I do.
Well, and you know, I heard this in a room just like a year ago, and I just love it. When we talk about what it looks like to be spiritually fit, and, you know, this episode's all been on year 2, but I'm talking about every single year, every single day. I just love this. They said, it doesn't matter if you're a day, a week, 3 years, or 10 years. We're all on the same path, and we're all the exact same distance from the ditch.
Yep. I love that. I heard that a while ago, and I was like, what a great, because you know I love analogies. So
me too.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, because I can visualize that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Which is like, that's not like a warning, like, oh my God. It's like, hey, just remember, 10 years from now, you still got to do the work, you know? But if you do it, you're not hitting the ditch. Mm-hmm. Or don't. Okay, don't. And then, unfortunately, you're probably going to end up in the ditch. Like, I've done time and time and time again. And today I'm just like, okay. So all I got to do is look forward to what the people that came before me are doing and just continue to do that. And we'll all stay out of the ditch if we lead each other and follow each other in that direction. And instead of that being like a warning, it's kind of motivating. It's kind of comforting to be like, okay.
Well, I think too, right? Like in the beginning, I just wanted to have it. Like that was the goal. I want to have recovery.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say that I have this. I want to be able to do, and now I can be very satisfied with growth that happens, but I'm constantly trying to improve.
Yeah.
Right? It's always about it. And as long as you keep going down that path, you will never find that ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And great. Look at that, keeping you going down that path, right? That's a great motivator.
Yeah. So yeah, year 2, take it seriously.
Yeah, don't fucking take your foot off the gas. What got you better will continue to keep getting you better. And there's no ceiling. I've never seen a ceiling to this.
Yeah.
Like the more work I do, it just keeps going.
Well, and it's, like I'm taking my birthday on Monday, and I took my birthday at the other fellowship on Thursday, and I've heard this a lot recently, so I'll share it with people. If you go to the rooms, pay attention. There's tons of 1-year birthdays. There's tons.
Yeah.
How many 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9s do you see?
nosedives.
Right? Like for every 6 1 years, there'll be 1, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
For every 1 to 2 years, there might be you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just try to get better every day, trust in God, and just do the work.
Yeah. And be ready for year 2.
Be ready.
It's going to kick your ass.
I remember when
And then it won't.
in that same here's how to stay sober, Coke machine analogy, in that same speech, the sponsor that gave me my chip, I remember what she said to me. She said, "Get ready.
Yep.
Year 2 is nothing like year 1.
No.
This is where the real work begins.
Yep.
You're either going to level up or you're going to fall down. The choice is yours.
Yep.
Work with God." And so when my first sponsee hit her 1 year, I was able to give that information to her. It's really cool to see.
Yep.
But that's the thing. Get to work.
Yeah. Don't stop what's working.
Yeah.
It'll keep getting better and better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me. I love being here.
Awesome. I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
We better.
Thanks.
Okay.
What are we going to talk about?
I don't know yet.
I don't know yet. Peace.